Hi, I'm Jeff Stone of Douglas Elliman Real Estate, and with me is my partner, Christina Musini Finnegan, and we're seniors real estate professionals. Basically, this is on the downsizing and relocation for boomers and seniors. Why we're doing this? Well, we're going to show you who we are, but more importantly, we want to show you what our guests do, how they can help you to maximize the value of their home, how it can also help us as realtors. But more importantly, this is for you, the homeowner, looking behind the scenes and listening to an expert talk about what they do and really how they can help you. So that's what we really want to do. So with us today, we have a very special guest speaker, and that is Pete Cafaro of the Inspection
You
Boards.
humble me. You humble me. Anyway, it's nice to see you guys again. I kind of have an idea of what sellers need to be aware of, based
Yeah.
on my almost 10 years of doing inspections for primarily potential buyers. But the capital intensiveness of these transactions as prices have gone up exponentially over the years. I would say that it looks like hopefully, or maybe the market might be shifting where sellers' inventories start to go up, and then hopefully the buyers that are flooding the world want to come in and start buying houses at a more a higher frequency right now, because I know the state of the union is a little light out here. But so with that being said, and being prepared to, inherit the hopefully the abundance of listings out there. You may be in a position where a house could be similar to other houses for sale, and what really separates those houses from your house? And the answer is knowing what you're selling. So, if you have comps, comparative market analysis in the same area of houses of like kind and quality, and let's say there's a half a dozen out there, and there's buyers that may be interested or not, the way you can separate, or the potential seller can separate their house, is listing it very strong. And what do I mean by that? Most often than not, I'd say 90 something percent of my jobs are I'm hired by buyers. Um, I am starting to see an uptick in sellers hiring me to get the state of the union prior to listing. And this is really important. Look, there's a lot of moving parts to a house. I would say the major components, categories, we'll do foundation, we'll do roof, we'll do electric, plumbing, um, mechanicals. Within that, there's a lot of subcategories, bathrooms and kitchens and general interior. I'm not saying that you need to know every moving part of your home, but just like someone's prepared to, make an offer, and they're going to go into a home and they're going to hire a professional inspector, whether it's me or, the thousands of others out there, they want to know what they're buying. So in that case, I'm hired to look under the hood and scrutinize deficiencies and make sure people understand that. But how great would it be for a buyer to actually take that same approach to their own property and know the inner workings and what's deficient and what's good and everything in between, to get the right out of the report, to get the things that may hang up a deal, to get a thing that may need to be renegotiated. There are so many things that could be wrong, but how great is it to, offer a house to the public, and then the potential buyer that has an accepted offer go in and have very little to come back to a buyer and a seller and say, I want to talk about this boiler because it's 30 years old, or the hot water heater's old, or the electrical panel is recalled, or, whatever it is. If you would have known that prior to listing, you're not going to have any rebuttals for these things, because they won't be present, because you'll either disclose them in your new disclosure rules, in your disclosure property disclosure report that was kind of modified or came out in, I think, the middle of 2024, where technically a seller should be disclosing that of which they know. The problem with this is to the layman or to the property owner, most people don't even know what they have or what they're doing. Most people don't know the difference between a furnace or a boiler. So, how are you supposed to disclose what's relevant to a potential buyer? And the way you do that is doing a pre-inspection or learning it on your own. And I would probably say a pre-inspection is a lot more time sensitive and professional. You're really going to get a good look yourself to say, okay, well, let's talk about this. Let's separate. Let's take one of those categories. Mechanicals. What can mechanicals be? It could be, like I said, a hot water heater, a boiler, a furnace. It could be an inverter. It can be a compressor unit. It could be an air handler. It could be a humidification system. It doesn't matter what it is. It matters that when it was put in, who the manufacturer is, how it's working, what the output is on the heat and cooling side for an HVAC system, and what have you. You know that a hot water heater, is it tankless? Is it a cylinder? Is it gas? Is it electric? And then all the things that are applicable to that specific item or appliance is in good working order. I mean, just a water heater alone, I did a continuing education class a couple of weeks ago on water heaters. I spent 4 hours talking about water heaters or listening about water heaters. I'm not saying that you need to write a thesis on every element of the home, but it's important. Let's take it this way. Are all the components of the water heater proper? If it's gas fired or oil fired, is the combustion exhaust proper set up? Is it discharge? Is it exhausting outside the property properly? Is the sealant around the flue going out to the wall penetration, is that sealed, or is there any backdrafting involved? So I can go. Is the pressure valve present? Is there a discharge pipe present? Is it leaking? Is it not leaking? And how about this? Is it working? Is the hot water output proper? And then most importantly, how old is it? Because, some water heaters, generally, I say after 10 years, it's probably nearing the end of its design life. Warranties are different based on manufacturer, but at the end of the day, that's an item that if I see a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old water heater, it's going to go in red in the report. And that right there is something that now, if your offer is accepted, you could say, well, the buyer's going to come back and say, I got to replace this water heater. I don't really want to throw out the numbers, but it could be $1,000. It could be $6,000. I don't know. But what I do know is that if it was identified, at least you would either have the option to disclose it or to replace it. Or just say, hey, I listed in my listing, I factored in the price of a new water heater when I listed the property. So at the very least, you're not hiding anything. And I could say sometimes people may know and they may hide it, but you listed strong and you're forthcoming in your representation, and then you identify or address those things that may come up in a general inspection to get these things away from the dialogue post inspection. Ultimately, the best case scenario is you put your house for sale, you get flooded with offers, you pick the best one or the best circumstance, they do their inspection, and then they come back a day later and sign a contract, and there's no dialogue. Or they say, we did our due diligence, we found a number of alarming things, we don't want to move forward. Or part three could be, we did our due diligence and we found a number of things that we're still interested in, but we want to maybe see if there's any economic improvement in here because of things that we weren't aware of. Like, you are disclosing that we have a great HVAC system. Okay, well, the cool air output was terrible and the system was 30 years old. So that means I don't even need to service it anymore. At 30 years, I would probably say it's run its design life. So these are the things that can come out in a pre-inspection, that and so many more. But the real concept of the idea behind all this is you're selling something, to be prepared in what you're selling. And if that's not you, maybe you could have a representative put that together for you. So you say, okay, I did my evaluation. I think that you may get more value if you address these issues. Or let's just say general interior. Now, before I get into another avenue of a home, I'll take a pause in case you want to interject a little bit, because I could probably talk about this for the rest of the night.
Yeah. Well, before Christina comes on with a few questions of her own, I just want to say thank you for being on the show. I know you're in your car, and that's because you came from an inspection today,
Yeah,
which took a long time, and that's great. That's what we want, somebody who's working out in the field. And here you are, right in the car. So thank you for that, Pete.
you got it. You got
Christina,
it.
you
No.
got anything?
Peter, I've worked with you a couple of times just in the
Yeah,
last year, and I have to say you're one of the most professional and diligent home inspectors that I've ever dealt with.
I
So
appreciate that.
kudos
That
to
makes gives me
you.
some power to keep moving forward with this
No,
career
you're the
that I've.
best. You're very
Thank you.
thorough.
I appreciate that.
And you're very honest and forthright about everything you do, and you work very hard, I have to say. So thank you for being on the show. I don't think there's anyone that could attest to the home inspection process better than you.
It's my
But I have
pleasure,
a
and I
question for you.
appreciate those kind words.
I have a question for you. So I know the boiler, like these are one of the really important items of a house when they're getting ready to sell. Can you just, I mean, you don't have to go into too many details, but what are the type of things that you see? Like if there's like a lack of efficiency, can you actually, like doing your job, can you actually identify those things, or is it just,
A lot of them. So the easiest identification, the first thing, let's say we're testing the heating system, and let's use there's varying types, but let's say there could be a forced air or a furnace, or there could be a boiler. So either or, the first part is if there isn't an impediment with seasonality, because sometimes we have 4 seasons here, so we're at an air conditioning season, we're at a heating season. Sometimes it's shut down for this for the season. Sometimes they're kind of commingled, so it's not really the best to activate a forced air system within a few minutes of each other, testing heating and cooling. So I like to get one side or the other, and whatever's left untested I leave as untested, because I don't really want to damage things when I'm doing them. So the first part of that question, the answer would be, let's check for output. We're testing the heat. What do we have? We have a boiler that's boiling water to go to either baseboards, or it could be radiators, and I'm going to go to the radiators and make sure that they're functioning properly, they're not leaking, and the heat output is proper. Okay, that's part one. Now I'm going into the basement, which I usually leave for the end of an inspection, because as I'm doing my plumbing and I'm stressing the plumbing systems, I want to make sure that there's no leaks emanating on the waste of the supply side, and obviously water flows down, and we're going to make sure that there's nothing suspect on plumbing that's non-visible. So I go to the boiler. What does the boiler look like? Okay, first part, is there any real damage or rust or age that is suspect? Is it leaking? Then there's a bunch of components to a boiler. Are those components present, i.e., an air vent or a pressure valve or a gauge? And, is the gauge visible? Because there's sometimes older boilers, there's a gauge present, but the gauge is now clouded over or dirty inside, and you can't see if there's higher pressure. So, I like to look at all these things. Is the air vent leaking? Is the pressure valve leaking? Is the actual boiler leaking? So, those are all signs of a few things, not including everything. But then, like I said, to this, about the water heater, what's the combustion setup like? There's a lot of things relating to that could be suspect. And then who makes it and how old is it? And that, once again, age is a very defining um, um, identification, because everything has a shelf life. So if it's 20 something years old, now granted, there are brands out there at 20 years old that I can't believe they made it to 20 years. And then there's brands at 20 years old that look like they're brand new at 20 years old. So a brand and a date says a lot. So, right off the bat, the seller is not looking for these things. They're just saying, boiler's great. I get it serviced once a year and the heat comes on. But, from a buyer standpoint, I have to say, yeah, you got heat, but you may not have it in a year or five, because it's now it's dated now, and it's in its latter years. So, you want to say, what am I inheriting? How is it working? If there's any deficiencies, this is what I'm seeing, like a leak or a leaking valve or a leaking boiler. And maybe at that point you could say, all right, well, my boiler is 12, 15 years old and we found a few things that are wrong. Get your tech in there and have these things fixed before you even list the house and have people walk in and look at it. I've been to places that have oil tanks in the basement and there's leaking oil from the boiler or from the tank.
Yeah.
And instead of fixing it, they throw cat litter down just to
Right.
hide it.
And can I ask
Yeah.
you, what if it's been switched over to gas? There's an abandoned oil tank, but it's still in the basement? How does
Okay,
that?
so I leave these. Well, in the basement is one thing. If I do see an oil tank, I can't tell if there's oil in it or not unless, because they have a gauge on the top of an oil tank. Sometimes they break, but if I do see an abandoned oil tank, I would always recommend its removal because it's unnecessary anymore. Especially at the very least, I would say, there may be oil in this unused tank. Let's get it out because tanks do rust from the inside. And if it's not leaking, eventually you can. If the tank is buried, okay, there may be paperwork on its proper abandonment. That's where the lawyers kick in and they follow up on that stuff. Or it can be properly abandoned, but there could be telltale signs of, let's say, the old meter on a wall that's showing the gallons that are left in the buried tank outside. Whatever it is, the trained inspector should identify that there had been prior oil just to get awareness around that to make sure that it was abandoned properly and that whatever's coming inside has been properly, capped off.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
there's just, once again, that's just a little bit further on because oil
Yeah.
tanks and what they service, or I put them into two
Yes.
different categories.
Yeah. Now, the reason why we would strongly recommend having a pre-home inspection to the homeowner, for the homeowner, it's because you don't want to be blindsided when the buyer's property report comes in.
Correct.
All of a sudden, they're asking for this, that, and everything else that we had no idea of. And sometimes we really don't. All right.
No.
The whole point is now you're giving out credits. Now you're lowering the offer amount.
And you're also delaying the signing.
Yeah, we're trying to maximize the amount that the homeowner can get for their home. And a lot of the times I hear, well, it's sell it as is. They're cash poor, home rich. And I said, that's not really all that good. I'd rather know
That's
what's
not the
going
answer
on.
anymore. In my opinion,
Yeah.
as is, just as a seller has an as is condition, I would think the buyer is equally entitled to their as is condition.
Yes.
I want to buy something that I can't scrutinize. And if I have a lot of dated mechanicals, how do I know that's being properly represented? I'm going to walk into a home, think about how expensive it is to move. And most people don't have unlimited capital to spend to move into a home. So now you walk into a home and you're buying a new boiler or a new HVAC system,
I want to know about my product because I need to market it and sell it, negotiate it with Christina for the highest possible price.
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, it certainly is. And again, do you have anything else to add to that, Christina?
No, just always good to have you on our side and as the seller's agent. And I recommend you to everybody out there to go get a pre-home inspection so that way you're ahead of it rather than having a surprise in the end.
Is this considered a home inspection light or a full-blown home inspection?
Well, listen, when I do these things, I really would like to focus more on the bigger ticket items. I mean, cracked walls and things along those lines. It's just general wear. Like that's present. No matter where you go, there's an element of that. Do I care about it? No. But once again, when you're listing something, you can improve general conditions that will maybe take less distraction away from even when people are doing an open house. They want to see it clean. They want to see it they want to see it like, I got to live here. I got to live here. If it's dilapidated and, unkempt and crowded or not really set up for an inspection, that shows. And you understand that,
we've been through situations where I've been blindsided by things about the house that I didn't know about that came through in a buyer's property report. And I said, my God,
Well, that's what a pre-inspection should, if the right person's in there, they should eliminate the major majority, if not all of the things that will get scrutinized. Now, even if they don't fix them, at least they can report them and address them. So there isn't that delay or that back and forth with well, I want this and I want that, but I'll assume this and you'll take care of that. Who wants to do that? It's
Yeah.
just not a good flowing process. You know, it's
Yeah.
very convoluted.
Well, this show, Downsizing and Relocation for Boomers and Seniors, it's on my YouTube, Jeffrey Stone, but it's also on Douglas Elliman's iTunes platform and SoundCloud. So again, we put this out there because I want people to know what experts like you can do for them. All right, because we're all trying to work as a team to maximize the value of their homes. It's as simple as that. It's all about service. And we'll be interviewing other experts, professionals in the field, such as senior move managers or tag sales specialists or removal of unwanted items and so on and so on. But we're coming to a hard close, Pete, and I just wanted to say thank you for what you do. And I can tell you, I'm going to recommend your services, Christine and I, every time we meet with a homeowner. We want to know
Great. Appreciate that.
full force.
You know,
what's happening.
just in closing, you know what you're selling, period, end of story.
Yeah.
You want to sell something, do some work and get involved.
Yep.
All right.
I believe in selling warts and all. Let's go for it, you know. And somebody we will be interviewing is a home renovation specialist, and you know, that's good, because if they don't have the monies, well, you know, that's something that can be taken care of at closing. But
well, sometimes, you know, listen, if I put red on, you know, this is, if I see exposed wiring in a junction box, it's a 50-cent cover. I would write that up as a hazard. So you put that cover on a junction box and it doesn't exist in the report anymore. That was a $1 fix. But something that, especially if a buyer's not present and I put it in a report and they see that and they're like, electric, oh my God, it's exposed wiring. I can't live in this house. So even simple little tasks can improve the overall presentation.
Now we'll have your information up for the person viewing this, but just for real quick, your mobile number, 917-592-5924, 917-592-5924. And that's Pete Cafaro with the Inspection Boys. So that's all we have for today, Pete. I thank you very much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, we'll see you around.
Good luck out there, guys.
All right, take care.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
Pete.